course, how we handle things anyways. You can't go back and forth to each other. People need to address the chair or the moderator. Of course, how we handle
Nothing.
things
I can do it on my phone.
No, it's fine. I just was having, I already
go back
searched
and
for all the
forth
stupid emails. Now I have to
to
go
each
back.
other.
Oh, wait, that was in text.
The chair or the moderator. Are you playing back a recording there, John, or do I just have a wicked echo?
John? Kevin had a question.
Yeah, it's a background issue here. I'm not sure what.
Okay.
Do we have all the select board members, John?
Okay.
Hold on a minute. I've got something going on.
Oh, I actually, John, I can admit people too now because I'm co-host. I've got something going on.
Yes, it's on there.
Okay.
Oh, I actually, John, I can admit people too now because I'm
Yes, you
co-host.
can.
He's not saying
I've got
this.
something going on.
You're having.
One, two, three, four. Oh, we're missing Chuck still.
Well, let's give him a couple minutes and then we will start without him if need be. Everybody, all the other board members are there?
I see Scott. I see Steve. I don't see him.
Yeah,
I
we've
see
got
Scooter.
everybody but Neil.
They can't
I mean,
hear
but Chuck, sorry.
you. They can't hear you.
Why can't they hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear
Okay.
you, John.
Perfect.
You can't hear you.
Is somebody going to display the warning or article, just to walk through them, or how I might have missed something earlier. Are we just going to, is it just sort of open questions?
On the notice for the required meeting on Saturday, all the warning articles are listed on that notice. I think the presumption was that anyone that wanted a town report could have gotten one by now. They also can get the town report via the website. It's there and has been there even before the printed copies came. My feeling was originally was that if people couldn't make the meeting on Saturday, this would give them an evening chance to ask questions if they wish to tune into the meeting and ask them. So my feeling was we wouldn't necessarily go through our warning articles, but we can do that if we want to. I don't really care. My only goal was to give people more than one chance to ask questions because they wouldn't be able to do that on the floor at town meeting for obvious reasons. And so I guess, however, Kevin and the rest of you think you want to go, we can do it either way. But meanwhile, let's open the meeting. We'll have, because Chuck is here now, I believe. And let's open the meeting and have public comment. And then before we start the question and answer thing, which is the next thing on the agenda, we can figure out whether we want to go through article by article or not. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay,
Works for
we're
me.
going to call the meeting. Are we all set, John?
Yes.
Okay, it's 6:04 and we're calling the regular meeting of the Pomfret Selectboard to order. The first part of this meeting is going to be for anyone in the public to field questions regarding town meeting and the warning and the town report, in addition to the meeting on Saturday. However, first, we need to have any public comments on anything not on the agenda. Anybody raise their hands? John, Kevin?
Don't see anybody.
Okay, and agenda review, is there anything that you wish to add or delete from the agenda? Okay, then Kevin Geiger is going to run this part of the meeting for us. He has some guiding thoughts at the beginning, I think, and then he will open it up and moderate this part of the meeting. And
Emily,
I guess-
Cynthia has one additional agenda item, which is to add warrant number 21069.
yes, for how much?
It's 13106.
That's it. Thank you, Chuck.
Okay. Okay. Very good. So Kevin, you're the boss.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So tonight's a little bit of a practice for the meeting on Saturday, and it's also its own meeting as well, so we can get some questions out in the open. One of my particular goals for the evening is if there is a question that cannot be answered immediately, it gives us a little time so that there can be an answer by the Saturday meeting. A couple of housekeeping things. This is not a town meeting, and so it's not, run in the same way. I'm your town moderator, but I'm going to kind of just do it according to the select board's rules and procedures, which is pretty much that debate is encouraged, but you speak to the chair, or now, if anybody speaks, they speak to the moderator. You need to identify yourself. We are recording this out there, and that, if people get a little off the rails, we'll have to warn them to get back on the rails. If you would like to speak, you speak once, and then we go around, make sure everybody has spoken before we come back to you again. I always kind of urge everybody to be nice, because we're all in this together. So we have the town report is out. So everybody should have a town report, a physical town report. And the ballots have been mailed. So everybody has a ballot as well. And so all of the articles, just to kind of review everything that the select board probably knows this back and forth, but everything that we'd usually vote on at town meeting is on a ballot this year. And that ballot has been mailed to you. And that covers the same things that are in the town report. The town report obviously has all the backup detail in there. And I have a question to begin with, which is, I believe these ballots can be, it's not just like usual town meeting day where Australian ballot is open that day and we walk in and we do the ballots. Somebody can actually return these ballots from any point now through the end of town meeting day. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so good. I just wanted people to know that.
She is accepting them now, and she is also, people can put them in the Dropbox. She is checking the Dropbox twice a day and then putting the ballots in the vault. And she is checking them off the checklist as she puts them in the vault. I believe, but I did not ask Becky, I believe she cannot open them until town meeting day.
Okay.
But and maybe she can't even open them until after 7 o'clock. I did not ask her because she runs elections and it was in her ballpark, not mine, but she is accepting them, and you can put them in the box even though the office is not open.
Okay, and so just a reminder to people about those, your ballot comes with an envelope, and so you need to fill out that envelope and use that envelope. You can't just do your ballot, toss it through the door. So otherwise it will get voided out there. So that's just a little housekeeping stuff. We have many articles on the ballot. Some of those are to elect positions. And then the kind of usual things about money and that type of stuff start at Article 3. And so I was going to begin on Article 3 and just see if anybody had questions and run through them. There are 19 articles. So obviously, if one wants to speak to an article, we're going to try to keep the comments very short. But I'm going to start on Article 3. And what I'll, instead of just reading the article and then seeing you all, what I'm going to do is say Article 3. Does anybody want to discuss that? And if nobody does, we'll just move on to Article 4. Because I'm going to assume that everybody has that. And Betsy Rhodes over there is modeling good behavior, which is if you want me to call on you, you either wave your hand physically like this, or down bottom of your screen, if you move your cursor and you see the little reactions thing down there and you click on that, one of the things you should see is a raise hand, and that'll put a little yellow hand up on your name. And so Betsy, I see you have raised your hand. So why don't you go? And so always begin by identifying yourself.
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thumbs up. All right. Betsy Rhodes, Rudge Road in South Pomfret. And I just have a question concerning Article 3 that came to real stark light when I opened the ballot and actually was going through the ballot and realized if someone, I mean, we hope that everyone participates in a meeting, reads the narrative, the budget narrative, the tax calculations, everything else. But if they don't, and they open up their ballot, my concern with Article 3 is that nowhere in the warning or on the Australian ballot is your entire proposed budget, one lump sum, does it appear, and neither does the amount to be raised in taxes. Neither number in Article 3 gives you that information. And honestly, it takes 4 or 5 calculations in order to arrive at it. And it still takes some hunting and searching, because in Article 3, if I'm looking at it correctly, the amount to be raised in taxes plus the amount from other sources doesn't even add up to the amount of the total budget proposed. So that's a question right there. So you do the math and you find the number and you go, and I'll be quick, Kevin, but you go, you do the math, you find the number, and it appears, fortunately, thank you for the digital copy, it appears in various places, and you find out that's the amount from the highway fund that's going to be used to offset taxes. So, you know, you can start, but it takes 5, 6 different calculations. And I'm just wondering, I guess my question is, I understand why you're not including appropriations. That's another debate to have. You haven't done it. That's fine. Okay, they appear elsewhere. However, it's impossible practically without reading the entire report to come up with the total amount to be raised in taxes. And I just am curious to the thought process on not including that total somewhere. You have a note, you have a great note on Article 3, and why couldn't something in there be noted? In the past, at least the amount, the total amount to be raised, the total budget and the total amount to be raised are apparent, and they don't seem to be to me. So I'm asking that question, I guess. And also tied into that, your calculations, you do have to realize that that 66,000, what is it? 66, it doesn't matter, 070, which is what you propose to use from the highway. It doesn't appear anywhere in the warning or on the Australian ballot. And therefore, I mean, you have an article about the unassigned general fund balance that you're going to use. And I just also wondered, why doesn't the highway fund money appear anywhere so that you have a fighting chance of doing the calculations using just the warning or the Australian ballot? So I just clarity. I'm always after clarity and more information. So there we go.
Okay, a lot of questions there. I think number one, I can't answer them, so I'm going to ask the select board. And I think it's probably best if we take them in reverse, because I think the last one may be the easiest one, which is there is an article to use general funds to, and that's Article 16 is to reappropriate 45,056. It's an unassigned general fund balance back to new stuff. But Betsy says there's no such article for highway funds. And can somebody speak to why that is?
Yes. Let me start at the beginning, please.
Family.
And the reason that the amount in Article 3 does not include the appropriations is because I had the experience to go to a workshop in how to write warnings correctly. And because this is an Australian ballot situation, we won't know what appropriations are win on the ballot and what appropriations are not winning on the ballot until after we count the ballots. And so if indeed we include that sum in Article 3, then we will actually be double appropriating all of those appropriations. So that's the beginning. Secondly, the reason we haven't asked the voters to add in, or basically we're deficit spending in the highway budget, because we are allowed by law to roll that money over from one year to the next. We do not have to ask the voters permission to roll that over. And so basically we have deficit spent in the highway budget by that amount of money. And as far as the general fund money, we do have to ask you how you wish for us to spend that. And that's why it is there. Because this is an Australian ballot situation and there is no discussion and there's no way for us on the floor to add these things all up to give you an exact total is why we haven't, because we don't know what appropriations will pass and what appropriations will fail.
Thank you.
And to be quite honest, this was the recommendation from VLCT in that warning workshop that I spent a couple hours in, was this is how they recommended writing the warning. And so that's why we've done it this way. I realize it isn't how we've done it before. That being said, we haven't had an Australian ballot situation before either.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. I knew that answer on the highway funds. That's good. So when one reads Article 3 and the number 901,986 will be raised by current year taxes, does that actually appear anywhere in the report? Or the number I'm seeing on page 22 of the town report, where it says FY22 budget proposed current year taxes is 936,509. So that may be a question as to why those two numbers are not the same, and maybe there is an answer out there. Hang on, Betsy. I'm going to see if there's an answer from the select board.
And so what line were you on, Kevin?
So I'm on line 5 on page 22 of the report. So it has the FY22 budget proposed current year taxes 936,509. And in Article 3, it says of which 901,986 will be raised by current year taxes. And so there's about $35,000 and change different between those two. And I was just wondering if that was a timing issue, or if typically in town meeting would be like, oh, go to page 43 and add this number to that number, and then it'll all work out. So I don't know. Betsy's already done the math, probably. But
I've done the math. It took 6 iterations, but I've done the math. So I can tell you, but I'll sit on it and wait.
Yeah,
But it also appears at the bottom of your tax calculation page on page 31, the end of the page. And that's the number a lot of people look at to say, okay, that's what's going to be raised in taxes. That's what should be warned. And I understand why it wasn't, but it is not clear. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, yes, that FY20 on line 17 on page 31 does say FY22 taxes to be raised 936,509, which is the same number as at least on the budget. Oops. I've accidentally shared my screen somehow. Oh, no, somebody else is sharing their screen. seeing last year's, there we go. There's Article 1, there's Article 2, there's Article 3. Okay, shrink that down a little bit. Yes. Yeah, and so you'll see in Article 3 there that 901,986. It's one of those numbers things. People often wonder why. Does the select board have an answer? Or should I let Betsy explain how to run the numbers on that? I see Scott Woodward's hand. Scott.
I believe the answer is that the difference in what's in the narrative, and I haven't looked at the spreadsheet since we approved it, but it should be accounted for in the appropriations, I believe.
Oh, okay. That difference is the appropriations difference.
It should be. So if all the appropriations pass, that will affect the ultimate amount to be raised in taxes and should get up to, because the narrative, you'll see the narrative caveats the
right
amount to be raised number that if all appropriations pass.
Okay.
So the
anybody,
number that you see in this article is just as the footnote says, exclusive of the appropriation.
Of the appropriations. Betsy, I would come back to you, but I want to make sure anybody else who wants to speak to this has a second to do that. I'm seeing no hands or anybody waving at me. So Betsy, would you like to have a comment as to
yeah, it's essentially, it is the appropriations. And since they've been broken out, which I understand because Emily has said this in the past, that she attended a meeting and this is the way to do it.
Yep.
Each year it's been done slightly differently. And even last year, the entire amount to be raised in taxes was listed somewhere in the warning. It said something to the effect of, if all the appropriations pass, this will be the total amount to be raised. And I'm just trying to find out why in a warning on a ballot, you don't actually list the entire amount to be raised, nor do you list your entire budget. I understand the appropriation, and I understand now that I need to do the math if I want to add everything up and figure it out and da. But when it's Australian ballot, it just glares right in the face. You haven't asked for the entire amount to be raised in taxes. You've left, Kevin, to do your math, $34,523 out there. It's just going to come from somewhere, and it's going to come from money to be raised in taxes. But as I said, I had to do several calculations in order to arrive at that, which I'm kind of crazy that way. I will do that. I know someone else who isn't and has already voted against the budget because it's just not clear. So that's it. I get it. I understand why you're separating out appropriations, but I hope in the future, a clearer picture of what you're asking and what needs to be raised in taxes appears in what people are voting on, opposed to throughout the report. The report, it's that 936 number is all over the place because that's the amount that was used in the operating report. That's what's used on your tax calculation page. That's what appears in the narrative. That's what it's all over. The 901, it only appears in your warning.
Okay.
So it's just, I understand how much work goes into this, and I do appreciate the work that goes in. I absolutely do. I understand it. But at the end of the day, being on the other end of this, just opening my report and trying to look at it and understand what's going on, it's not, this is not clear.
Okay.
So
okay.
That's
Thank
it.
you, Beth.
That's it. Thank
That's
you.
good.
Thank you for listening.
And I take it from the select board that you know, because these things are complex and the order in which things gets voted on, we can't kind of innovate like we do at town meeting and adjust. We have to, you only get one shot at it because it's a written ballot. I take it that on all those other articles that have shall the voters appropriate X, it also means shall the voters appropriate X and we raise that amount in taxes.
That is the problem with that was the problem. And I understand what you're saying, Betsy. Unfortunately, we do not have the option this year of changing that figure at the end of the game as we normally would. And we normally would put that appropriation article at the end and it would account for all of these yes, nos, or maybes. We also were told, and you will notice in the warning, that every single one of those social service agencies and the library and the cemetery all have a yes or no vote. And the reason there was that it had to be an all or nothing thing. If we added the library and cemetery together, then you had to vote those as one. If
Right.
you added 5 of the appropriations together, then they all won or they all lost. And so even though this isn't how we've done it before, and I apologize for that, the only way to do it without double appropriating is to do it, and all of those extra things that are not in the budget are added on, basically. And
Yep.
so you need to know that, and we had to back those out in order to not appropriate $80,000 plus for the library and $24,000 for the cemetery and all those other things. And I realize it isn't like we've done it before, but doing it by Australian ballot isn't like we've done it before either.
Okay. So I think that,
I think that's unfortunate, but that's the rules of the game.
yeah. So I think in Saturday's meeting especially, we can note, and you kind of already hit it there by the note on Article 3, that what we are voting on is to appropriate the 901, 986, and that if all of the other ones pass, what we're actually going to be appropriating is that 936, 509. But that the logic train is that's at the several of if then statements, right? And that only comes true if all of those pass. And so
Well, and also
any permutation could happen in between.
the appropriations pass, but also the one to use the $45,000 from the unassigned general fund has to pass as
Right.
well. And so all of those things made it, this was the only way we could do that.
Yeah.
And then if all those other things don't pass, then this is what we're stuck with. And that's the way it is.
Yeah, I understand. And I do, one of the things that I learned today, which is kind of obvious, but it does bear repeating, is that we can't amend anything. You know, it's not like the floor where we're going to amend something up or down or a little bit or add something in or out or combine items. These are all up or down votes. And so that's the way it has to be done through Australian ballot. So are there any other concerns, since Article 3 really is the entire budget? If there was any concerns on any particular line, that'd be a good time now. I see John's raising his hand. John
I have no doubt that in my mind that we did the right thing in the way we did it, although we could have put something in there that explained what the outcome was in hindsight, because each article is its own, so you can't put in a different budget. Well, if this one passes, it's this much. If it's this one plus this one, then it's this much. So put something in that for each of those independent articles, for each one that passes it, that it would have to get added to that number. But I do believe that 3 is correct. I just think we probably should have explained that better, which is unfortunately, this is the first time we've dealt with Australian balloting and not had the opportunity to explain to voters on the fly. I know many people have already returned their ballots, and so they've voted at this point. And I mean, there's nothing at this point that we can do about it other than wait and see and do better next time around.
Right. Well, we're all trying to keep doing better. So John Ricketson, you see your hand.
Just a very brief comment, and I did the math like Betsy did just now, and now I understand it. And thank you, Emily. You kind of, what you said helped me, where you had to take out the 45,000 as well. So I think just a suggestion, if this does become a point of confusion and discussion at the larger meeting, I don't know, could we explain something as simple as, take the 901 add up all the amounts in, 4 through 15 and subtract out the amount from 16 and you get the number. Okay. That's in the budget, the 936.
That's good. And so maybe somebody from the select board can be prepared to take us through that quick math if needed. Are there other particular comments? Because we have a lot of other articles. I don't know how much people are waiting to talk to them. Are there any other particular comments on the budget, which is Article 3 really, which is where there's maybe, why is such and such number? Hang on, Betsy, because you've spoken already. I'm just going to try to make sure.
Sorry, I
anybody
can't
else-
see since we're sharing screen. I only have like 3 boxes, so I can't
Oh, okay.
see other people. Sorry, I
Um,
don't mean to jump in.
No, that's okay. And I don't see any other hands or anything. So Betsy, do you have a different?
Different. Yeah,
okay.
it is totally different. I mean, it's
Yep.
not, but it's with
Plus-
Article 3. I'm
Yes.
just curious. I understand why you did not, the amount to be used from the highway fund, the 66,000 from the highway fund didn't have its own article. Okay. I do wonder though, why was that not included in current year taxes, and then this other sources, the 487,661 that's listed, because that would have also helped me understand that other money from somewhere else. Only again, when you look at page 31, do you see that the 66,000. Let me look.
You
Sorry.
will also see it in the highway. I don't know what page it's on, but you will also see that in the highway budget.
Yes.
And you will see it in parentheses as
Yes.
we are deficit spending by that amount.
Yep. No,
Okay.
and I appreciate, sorry, Kevin, I shouldn't be talking directly.
That's okay. Yeah, we're doing a little bit of that tonight,
Sorry.
and I know I'm gonna try to clamp down that a little bit, right? Because people should always be asking me a question, and I can kind of send to is on line 118 on page 30, which is that highway revenues over and under bit there. So, hang on, Betsy. I'm just practicing my stuff. I can see all tonight. I'm assuming I'm going to have more people on Saturday. So do you have a follow-up question?
I do. And I appreciate seeing the change in fund balance for both the highway and the general fund. That's great. I'm just curious, on page 31 with the tax calculations, the report includes all 4 lines from, let's see, from other town revenues, highway revenues, and then the general fund balance and the highway fund balance. So your number to come from other sources is actually 598,780.
Oh, Betsy, you've gone muted for some reason. And now you're
Sorry.
muted. There
Okay.
you go. There
Sorry.
you go.
So my point is, and this might help clarify, and it's just future reference. And John, I fully appreciate we are all just doing this on the fly and figuring out Australian ballot and everything else, but as we go. But future reference, if that total from the tax calculation sheet of 598,787, which is line 12, if that had been in the warning, then I wouldn't have been wondering about the 66,000 hanging out there. What is that? Where do I, and needing to figure it out. So I guess I'm wondering why. I understand the explanation as to why highway is not a separate article, the highway general fund to be used to offset taxes. But why couldn't highway be included in that other sources of money so that at least the amount that's listed in the warning balances with the budget that's proposed in the warning?
So would any of the select board members care to respond? And again, the answer is not Betsy, blah, blah, blah. The answer is this is why. So just practice that. And I'm seeing nobody raising their hand or literally waving at me to respond to that from the select board. Hang on, Betsy. Looking for an answer.
Can you repeat the question, Betsy?
Sure.
Sure.
Can
Betsy.
I repeat
Yes.
the question? Yes. So question is, in the warning and on the Australian ballot, the amount listed from other sources is 487,661. And that does not include, as listed in the calculations of taxes to be raised, it does not include the highway fund money of 66070. And so from the get-go, the numbers in the warning, the 901 to be raised and the 487,661 don't equal the budget that you're proposing, the $1.4 million budget. So just from the get-go, I was like, what's going on? Why isn't this balancing? So my question is, was it a conscious decision? Was it a calculated decision to not include the highway money for the same reason that there is not an article concerning the highway money? Or it just would have been much clearer. I could have saved a couple of calculations. And again, it's not a huge deal. I take the time, I do it, but a lot of people don't. And a lot of people look at this and say, it doesn't balance, I'm done. And then all your hard work goes out the window, which is crazy. Sorry, it's
Okay. So
Anyway.
that's a comment and
Yeah.
a question as well. And so if there's a select board member that would like to answer that, again, addressing the chair or the moderator, that'd be wonderful. And I'm going to look for a physical hand or the little yellow hand thingy. And I can't see all of you physically. So if Emily or Scott or Chuck wanted to answer this, they'd have to use the little yellow hand. And I'm not hearing an answer. That's okay. So other questions or comments on additional articles? I was going to move on to Article 4, which is the Abbott Library. And if there's any
Scott
questions.
had his hand.
Oh, Scott. Scott did?
Kevin, I just had a thought that perhaps we could take Betsy's question as a research item and come back to her with an answer.
Sure. And it's the type of thing that maybe, a little pre-made spiel would be useful at the beginning. It's certainly appropriate to kind of say, when we get to Article 3, a select board member could be recognized and just kind of go, here's what we did and why. And that would solve everybody's question on that.
I'd like that we can agree as a board, maybe later to do that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
you.
I did not see. How did you see his hand and I didn't see his hand, John?
John's quick.
I don't think it was up for very long. So
No, it was only up for
now
a
I can see your picture. I couldn't see your picture before. Okay.
Thank you. I would appreciate that. Just again, future reference. Thanks.
Thank you all. So Article 4 is the Abbott Memorial Library. If there's are there any questions on Article 4 from any of the public, especially? Okay. Article 5, the Cemetery Commission. And I will note, just somewhat like I do during town meeting, just so people can follow along, I have made a note in my town report as to the pages that, so if somebody says, oh, the library, what page is that on? So that people can follow along. And, the library is on page 41, the Cemetery Commission reports on page 43. Because some people may just be literally cracking the book at that moment. Hearing none. Article, going to go on to the next article, which is Article 6, which is the visiting nurses and hospice. Oh, Emily, I see your hand.
If you take you can go through each of these individually, but if nobody has any questions, all of these articles until you get up to 15 are the requested amounts from the social service agencies.
Mhm.
And these have not changed. Any of them, none of them are any different than they were last year. They're all the same amounts.
Excellent. That's a nice thing to know. Maybe on Saturday when we hit, does that include this Article 4 and Article 5? Or is that
Yes, Article 4
articles.
and Article 5 are also the same as last year.
Okay, so that might be a good little just quick thing to interject into the discussion right then, and then just so people know. Is there any question on Articles 7 through 14, which are all of the appropriations to the different community groups? Otherwise, I'll jump over that. And go to Article 15, which is to establish a reserve fund called the Tego Village Fund. Are there any questions on that one? Betsy Rhodes.
I don't know what I feel like. I was just curious. I had heard from other sources that this was actually a donation to the town, the $10,000 to be used. I did not see that in print myself, but someone else had told me that. And so I was just wondering if there's any more information about how this came about, and that didn't, and if it was in the report, I'm sorry, I missed it. So I'm just curious about how it came to about and whether it was a gift or whether it's $10,000 of raised taxes that are going to
Would,
this.
would
Okay.
John, this
Okay.
was kind of your thought. Would you like to speak to that issue? As to what
So-
what we would call this and how we came about with this?
It is in the town report. I don't know if it specifically spells out that it was a donation. I'd have to look, but we are getting slightly over $20,000 from Artistry for payment in lieu of taxes. Approximately half of that is what their town tax burden would actually be if they were a nonprofit. So Artistry decided to give us about twice what the tax burden was. And we as a select board decided to make this fund for South Pomfret improvements to help with traffic and pedestrian flow that's partly been caused by the increase in traffic from Artistry. And the plan was to set aside half of Artistry's total donation. So putting what would be their tax burden towards taxes, and then taking the other half of that donation to put into a fund or a reserve to use that money in that area down there for those purposes.
Okay, thank you. So I have a question and just a couple things. So just general informational point of view, when we create a reserve fund, all reserve funds must be created by town meeting. And so that's what this is. A reserve fund is a specific creature. Once you put money in, it does not take a vote of the town to take money out, but the select board can only remove money for the purposes of the reserve fund that it's set up for. I am seeing a $20,285 charitable donation number on page 23, line 55 of the town report. Is that probably the number that we're talking about?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Any question or comment? I see Betsy Rhodes' hand.
I thank you for the information, and this is why I came directly to the source, because that is not what the rumor mill says. So I'm just saying, I appreciate the answer. Thank you, John. That's really helpful. And so that also answers maybe why it is in the town operating. It seemed like it was a highway, if you're dealing with pedestrians and traffic, and it was a highway issue, but I understand now why it's under the general fund. So thank you for the explanation.
Do you
And if
mind
you,
sharing what the rumor mill is?
oh, just the,
Okay, no,
no.
this is very polite, and
I'll talk
so
to you later. No,
and
Sounds
so,
good.
but one person should not be asking another person a question. You just ask the moderator a question or the chair a question and say, Mr. Moderator, can I inquire as to what the rumor mill is? And then I'd go, and kind of, it's like three-way tennis. Everything goes to me, and then I serve it to somebody else. So Betsy, it sounds like you'll discuss that separately with John.
only unless you'd like me to talk about it now, Mr. Moderator. No? No, I'm kidding.
I don't need to.
No, it's not a big deal. It's just someone said it was a gift from Kathleen Dolan, period. $10,000 she gave to the town, which is not completely inaccurate. It's just, this makes more sense as to where it is in the report and why and that sort of thing. So,
Well, and we should be clear that voting to appropriate the sum of 10,000 is different than voting to raise that money in taxes.
And-
that money is not being raised in taxes.
exactly.
That money is just taking some money, and because if an article like this passes, the select board doesn't have a choice in the budget. The budget's just a bunch of things that directs them that they have to put that money into that account. It both creates the reserve and puts the money into the account.
Right.
Article 16, which is that kind of housekeeping sweep that you have to do. You don't have to do it with highway funds, but you do have to do it with general funds, as we discussed earlier. Any comment or question on that? Oh, I see Emily's hand. Emily.
I just wanted to be clear that you understood that the $20,000 plus that Kathleen gives us as a donation is a totally unrestricted amount. We can do anything with it that we want. Doing this with it was not a condition that she gave us. We felt that it would be an appropriate way to take that windfall money and use it to improve the situation at the library and at the store and at the Grange Theater. But she did not ask us to do that, and it was a totally unrestricted donation. It's just what the select board decided to do with that, or what we decided that we would ask the voters if they would like to do with that.
Thank you for clarifying that, Emily. Yes, this is not at the direction of them. This is the town directing the select board, kind of at the select board's request, to send that chunk of money into this new reserve fund. And Betsy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that clarification, because that was something else that, she gave it because of all of the congestion with Tigo and everything else. And so it's good to know that, just clarifying is really helpful. And with my library hat on, I am really grateful that this is happening, because I think traffic down there does need to be addressed. So thank you very much for the thought.
Wait. Again, no responding. So
Okay, that's it. I just wanted to say thank you.
Betsy has the floor. Would somebody?
Kevin to Emily.
Would somebody like to? Emily, would you like to?
Well,
have a
that
comment?
agreement with Kathleen was negotiated 2 years ago, and we've been trying to figure out what we should do with that extra money, but it was totally unrestricted.
Thank you. Article 17 is one of those, kind of housekeeping things. Unless anybody wants to talk about that. Article 18 is to create a highway reserve fund. And this does bear a little explanation, at least. Again, the select board probably already all understands that. So I see Scott's hand. So Scott, would you just take folks through kind of what's going on and why?
Sure. This is also a housekeeping item, really. Going back in the early history of Pomfret, when some of these reserve funds were created, the wording of the articles that created them were probably appropriate for the time, but we've been using the reserve, what we're calling the Highway Vehicle Reserve Fund, as a reserve fund for several years, when technically, when it was created, it actually wasn't. It was a sinking fund, and sinking funds are different from reserve funds. Sinking funds can only be used to pay off debt service, whereas reserve funds can be used to accumulate balances and roll those over from year to year, and then make cash purchases from the balance. So they serve two different purposes. What we're doing is cleaning that up and turning it into what it already is in practice.
Thank you. And Scott, will you be the person who I would expect might do the same
Sure,
bit
I'm
of
happy to
time?
make the same presentation.
I make little notes in my book here. Okay. Article 19, down at the end. That's like get taxes in 2 chunks. It's kind of another housekeeping bit. You all look good. Okay. So let me just hang on a sec here. Good, 6:50. Good, we're good on time. Any other issue? I was not able to easily find the warning for the public meeting on the town website. So if somebody could tell me what page is, I saw the thing that like there's going to be a meeting on the main page, I believe, on the right hand side. But I did not actually see like a warning about the town meeting on the town website. So, John, since you can you actually go to the town website page and just show us that?
Yes. Hold on 1 second.
And actually show us where the Zoom link is too while we're there, just for everybody's edification.
This might not come out very. Hey, Scott.
Oh, you're working off a tablet?
Well, I started the meeting not realizing I hadn't given screen sharing ability to my new laptop, which means I'd have to restart it in order to share off my laptop. So maybe, Scott, you can pull it up and I'll give you sharing on your computer. Can you do that? Maybe.
I can neither see nor hear Scott, so, but I'm assuming he's out there.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I had to go check my wood stove. Sorry.
Scott, we had a question of John was going to have you share your screen, and I see Nancy, is that you waving to on this matter?
Yes, because
Nancy
I know
Matthews.
where I know where it is. If I
Oh,
if
okay.
that would be
What
helpful.
are we looking for?
I can answer
Where on the town website, I was actually going to have somebody show me on the town website where the warning for the informational meeting is.
Oh, okay. There.
And
Okay. Nancy, you got it.
It's on, if you go to the website and it's
Okay.
on the first page. And if you look down under special meetings, it says town meeting day. And under that, the first link is the town warning. That's where the link is for the warning.
Oh, okay.
It's not the ballot. There's also a sample ballot there.
Okay. All right.
You have both.
Okay. Very good. Okay.
And also the school,
Yeah.
the
And I was able to find the link, which will be the same link that we all use tonight for the meeting on Saturday, correct? Yeah. Yes, John, give me a thumbs up. John Ricketson.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm glad since you mentioned links. So maybe you all already discussed this. I know I joined about 3 or 4 minutes late. The link in John's email that went out tonight didn't get me to this meeting. I had to go on the town website to get the link for this meeting. We already knew that. Okay. Just wanted to make sure there's no confusion for the next one.
Okay. Very good.
Kevin,
Yes, Emily.
were you asking about the warning for the town meeting or the warning / notice for the informational meeting?
I was actually asking about the warning / notice for the informational meeting. I do see on the town website, I see like, it's like a little sentence that says there's going to be an informational meeting. But I didn't see anything that was like, took me into a link to a page or to a notice.
So my question is, Becky was supposed to put that when I took the notice and posted the notice, she made copies of the notice. She was supposed to put that on the website. Has anyone checked to see if it is on the website? It has been properly noticed at the various locations, but is it on the website? Does anyone know? Has anyone looked for that?
I'm looking for it now. What, so I see, I'm not sure if it's this meeting tonight or the one on Saturday, but it says, it doesn't give a date. It says COVID-19 select board meeting. And, oh no, that's our regular meetings. Special meeting. Yeah, there, here it is right here, Emily. So
Can you tell Kevin where it is then?
yeah, it's in the, there's a bulletin board, there's a box on the front page, and there's go to the right, and about 2/3 of the way down, it says special meetings and events, pre-town meeting, informational meeting, Saturday, February 20th at 9 a.m. via Zoom. Use the link for the regular select board meetings.
Okay, yes, I saw that. So is that actually the notice that I should be looking for?
Well, it's not the actual physical notice, but that's no, it's not the notice.
Okay.
And what I don't know is whether, hang on a second. And it's not posted to our agenda either. So our meeting record page.
And that was the only note that for those who came for the select board stuff here as we close out. One of the things today in the VLCT informational meeting on all of this stuff is that because the Saturday meeting will be a select board meeting, technically, the only item on the agenda is the informational meeting for town meeting. They do advise that have an agenda that says informational meeting for town meeting.
Mr. Moderator,
We will notice that.
Yes, Emily, were you just asking me a question?
Cynthia was.
Oh, Cynthia Hewitt.
Yeah, we discussed that earlier. I will
Yes.
post the agenda tomorrow on the select board website
Thank you.
page.
Okay, I think that's all the work here. I know you guys have plenty of other stuff on the agenda. So thank you all for coming, doing your part. And we're ready, and hopefully we get a big crowd on Saturday. Okay.
Thank you very much, Kevin, for moderating for us. We appreciate that.
You're welcome. And we'll hopefully have a good discussion Saturday.
Okay, proceeding on with our regular agenda. We have approval of the 2-3 minutes. Those were in your packet. Are there any questions on those or corrections?
Hang on a second, Emily. I got to get to the website.
Okay, there's no hurry. Did anyone else have any corrections, questions on the minutes? John, Chuck, Steve?
No,
I would just because, I mean, even though we talked about it, I don't know that it makes sense to include the reference to the EPA grant under that's where we talked about it, but it's not really relevant to the greater bids. I don't know that it really makes sense to talk about that EPA grant in the midst of the decision on the greater bids.
Do you want me to remove it?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just would want to keep the minutes relevant to the decision that was made.
Okay.
Would should we then put that discussion under C then?
Yeah, I think that's probably the better place to put it.
Well, that would make more sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I feel like under the furnace, I'm just going on memory. I think we talked about an actual date about when it needs to be replaced. Didn't we throw out even a rough date of when that furnace should get replaced?
We were going to ask any of the, any or all of the vendors as to whether a water softener would help extend the life of the furnace. And so if we're going to replace the furnace, I would think that we would wait until the end of the heating season when they wouldn't freeze if it was turned off for the day. That being said, John, we were gonna discuss that with you, weren't we? You know
Oh,
how
I
these
didn't
heaters
say-
work.
The minutes
Anyway,
say we
I
were
have
gonna,
not called the vendors, but I will be more than happy to call the vendors.
yeah, I think we need to get input from the vendors as to the softener, but I mean, the recommendation, basically the furnace ought to be replaced within the next year, from what I recall. Which means, yeah, sometime over the summer would be the time to do that.
I will contact the vendors regarding the softener, and would that help? So, because we didn't make any decision as to who we might get to do that either. But I have all the vendors in that packet from a couple weeks ago. So I think the minutes were correct. Anything else in the minutes that needs to be addressed?
Just a point of clarification under the employee handbook. I think we did actually, I'm not sure if this is what you meant to say, Cynthia, that we actually did get concurrence on the outstanding questions she had for the board. Is that what that last sentence is meant to say? Because that's what we did, is Teresa had a bunch of outstanding decision items she wanted us to make, and we got through all of those. Was that what you were trying to say under the last sentence in G?
Yes, and I'll make that clear.
Okay, thank you.
So I need, if there are no other corrections, I need a motion.
So moved.
And I need a second.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor? John,
Aye.
Chuck,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Scott,
Aye.
and myself, aye. It's a little more challenging. I can't even see some of you guys, so then I can't keep track of where you are. Okay, next on the agenda, warrants for approval. These are written in the document with an addition of 21069 for 13106, which was a replacement of a check. I will move that we approve these warrants. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion on any of these warrants? Any questions? Are you ready to vote on those? If not? Okay, I'll assume you are. John,
Aye.
Chuck,
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Road foreman's report. Is Jimmy here today?
Yep. I'm
for
here.
it.
The one thing I did get on late here, but seeing how I see on the agenda, the greater bid evaluation process, if there was any way possible, we could move that up so that I don't have to be up, because I do have an interest in that.
We can put that right at the end of, at the first items for discussion or vote, if you would like, if the rest of board is in agreement with that. Anybody? Is
Fine with me. Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody?
Yep, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
Okay, go for it,
Thank you.
Jim.
Thank you. So, the new truck, the six-wheeler, we have that at the barn now. It's all running really well. Everything is good with it. There was a couple of things that are with it right now that they're gonna get addressed for us. There was some overspray that got on the windshield with the paint booth with it and whatnot. we tried to clean it off. They walked me through the steps on cleaning it off and it still wasn't right. So they're planning on right now, weather pending, but coming down Friday, the painting company, and cleaning the windshield up and seeing what they can do about the overspray that got on the hood of it and stuff of that nature. So they're willing to make it right on whatever they've got to do. The rear axle of it was out about 1 3/4 on the passenger side. That's just a matter of an adjustment and some alignment on it. Parks is working on that right now. There's no jeopardy or danger in driving the truck. They have told me that, and they are going to be sending out an email to me here within the next, well, hopefully I'll have it by tomorrow morning, and on that they'll stand behind anything and whatnot. So I'm not nervous about that. Other than that, those two things they're taken care of, but the truck goes really well, and I do know that I can see it's going to save on salt. I do know that. Plow letters. Do we object if I was to put a list together and sending some letters out to either the landowners that are having these individuals plow across the road, or how do we go about doing that?
Yeah, I would think we would. I know it's been done in the past. I guess if we know who's plowing it, maybe send either to them or both. If you don't know who's plowing, then the landowner, I guess. But plowing across the roads, A, illegal, and B, not safe. So just a friendly reminder to start, as that usually takes care of it.
Cindy
So I'll
would
get a list together and then get together with Emily or Cynthia or somebody.
Cindy would be glad to, you'd be glad to send those letters, wouldn't you, Cindy?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So if you get her together the information, she would be glad to finish that up for you.
Okay, that would be great.
Just make sure the state statute is listed and cited in that, so that they know that it's what it is and it's real.
Okay. And then I'm going to be getting the grader out with the wing on it here within probably, I would say, we got this snow coming here and whatnot, but working on getting that out. So that'll be out. The loader will be out. We're going to push the snow banks back and open up the intersections. That's one thing I got going to do. The truck lettering, I have been working on getting prices for that. Is there a preference from the board on the color of the lettering or anything of that nature?
Do you already have some ideas in mind, Jim?
Actually, I don't. And it's being a gray truck. I think the white's not going to do like what it was on the green.
Right.
So,
Right. Yeah, you'll want something that contrasts well with the gray, right?
yeah,
So probably a darker color.
that's kind of what I was leaning towards. But I was thinking like maybe a darker blue or something like that. But
Yeah, you just read my mind. I was going to say the same thing.
And they should be able to, if you suggest the colors, they should be able to use the color of the truck as a background in their computer modeling, and then either send some samples over or whatever and go through them and pick what looks the best.
all right, I can do that. And then what I'll do is I'll have them send that down to me when I talk to them again, and then I'll circulate it around to you guys, and you guys can look at it as well.
I'd try a gold or something too. That might look pretty sharp.
Gold might look nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, it would. Yep.
With the red apple in the middle of it, that would really
Stand right
stand out nice.
And then John Peters has got the radio installation lined up for next Tuesday. So for the two trucks, so they'll have the radios installed and put into them, which will be a great thing. I did take the old V plow and move that into the shop. We haven't tackled it yet, but over time, I want to get that painted all back up and make it look good. And then I'd like to think I could get the permission to get it lettered so we can put it back up by the sand pile where it was. And then the only other thing that I really had was these evaluations that we do on employees, their annual, I guess the pay, I should say the pay raise. Are we doing that on their anniversary, or was there talk on doing it something different, or?
I can't remember.
the intent-
I thought sorry, John, what were you gonna say?
I think the intent was to have the evaluations done in time for the fiscal year change, and that's when we would do raises once we got into the new budget year, if I remember correctly.
Jim is doing quarterly reviews with each of the crew.
Right. Those are check-ins though. These are the annual performance appraisals.
Okay, so you still need that.
Yeah. I feel like we did make a decision on timing, whether it was the anniversary, whether we were going to stick with the anniversary, or as John is saying, do them all right around the same time with enough lead time before the fiscal year.
I think that's what we're going to do. So we'd have them, instead of having, different people come at different times, that it would all be, the first year might be slightly different due to higher dates, but you'd have the annual ones all at the same time, just to streamline everything.
How about April, which is the fourth quarter? He could do an annual instead of a quarterly for the April report.
Hang on.
But if memory serves me, I think you guys did talk about doing them all in one shot kind of deal.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
thinking about this now, what John's describing, that rings a bell with me.
It does with me
that's what
too.
we did.
Yeah.
I don't think we set a date time that they needed to be done on, but
I'm looking through the minutes. I'm trying to find it where we did it. I'm not finding it just yet. Why don't we take an action item here and just look that up so we're sure exactly whatever it is we decided.
That's fine. We can do that at the next meeting.
Yep.
Anything else, Jim?
No, the only other thing that I did have is I've had a few complaints over the tree companies being in town, leaving their brush piled up here and there, but they've been coming back and cleaning it up. So I reached out to a guy from Green Mountain Power, and he assured me that no, that was their plan. He had called them, and because people were worried it was going to get buried up in this last snowstorm. And the places that they did call about was on Galaxy Hill and whatnot. And I did notice that they went back and cleaned it up. So I think moving forward here, I think they're pretty good at doing what they're going to do. So I did have a couple complaints on that, but that's about it. That's it for me.
Okay, go ahead, John. Or Steve. whoever.
Steve,
I was just gonna say thanks to Jim.
Okay,
Doing
we'll do the greater bid evaluation process next. Scott, you put that on?
Yeah, this is I just want to say up front, I don't mean to debate the outcome, but I felt a little bit uncomfortable about the process last time, that we didn't actually quote the prices in our discussion. We didn't really go through like we did with the trucks. And again, I'm not saying the outcome is wrong, but I would have liked to have seen us do like we did with the trucks, where Steve did such a good job writing out the bids and the prices and some of the features. And my only point is we just didn't do that with the greater bids, and I really would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah, I kind of felt in that situation when I sent the results of the two bids, only because there was only two, and then the amounts were on those, I figured that was adequate.
Well, we didn't
discuss those in an open meeting for sure, but
right. So, I mean, if if folks are amenable to this, again, I'm not questioning the outcome, is Steve, would it be possible just to kind of backwards engineer that information into a document that we can just tuck into the meeting minutes?
Sure. I can do that for the next meeting.
Okay.
Any more questions on the greater bid evaluation process? Moving on then to Tigo liquor license. That was included in your packet. It's kind of hard to read. It's a little small, but it's there. Does anybody have any problems with that?
So this is their actual renewal, right, Emily? Their whole life.
That is my understanding, yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what it is.
Liquor
Okay.
license renewal application.
So this is just pretty much there's nothing different. I don't see, I'm just going on memory, but I don't see anything jumping out at me that looks any different than last year.
It's
I
not,
didn't
it's their,
either.
it's their standard second-class license application,
Right, right,
which the store has had since, I don't know, God knows when.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
So we need then, I assume there's no place here to, I assume we have to sign off on that. It says continued on next page.
Yeah, there's another
Okay.
page where we sign it. But,
So-
and probably it's there where the application was delivered. So it must be at the town clerk's office.
So there's no next page in the documents here. However, we need a motion to approve the liquor license. And that should include, unless we all want to go up there and sign it, for one of us, or I would be glad to on Friday, whatever, for one of us to go up there and sign off for the board. And I assume that one signature will do, hopefully, because of COVID-19.
I would double check that whether one signature.
Well, I'll ask Becky on Friday, or I can email her now. But if we need more than one signature, perhaps I could coerce John or Steve or Chuck or Scott.
I have to go up there on Friday anyway. so.
I'm happy to go up there as well, so it's not a problem.
Well, then why
I
don't
as
we
well.
all plan on, as many of us as can go up on Friday and get it signed then. And then Becky can finish it off.
Okay.
So we need a motion then.
I'll move that the board approve the Tigo Stores annual liquor license renewal, class 2 liquor license renewal.
I'll
Second,
second that.
Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? John,
Aye.
Chuck,
aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay, moving on. Then as many of you as can will go up and sign that on Friday. Yes?
Yes,
Thank you. Approval process for vendors and credit cards. John, you put this on?
I did, and I'd hoped to have something prepared to get out to everybody prior, which I haven't. I know we briefly discussed it one other time. And it's probably something that ought to actually, the more I thought about it, probably ought to be an amendment to the purchasing policy itself. So we may not want to get into this until we want to change it, although we could add an amendment at any point in time. I think it's important to have an approval process for receipts when they come back for the person, even though many things are authorized either through the budget or at this level. But when people go out, and whether they charge something over at Welch's because they need some snow stakes, or, we order office supplies with a credit card, having the responsible person for those purchases approve that before the bills are paid. The process that I go through with my employer is anytime anybody buys something, you obviously get a receipt that needs to be brought back. In this case, would go to Ellen, and then we have a little slip that we attach to it, and which signifies that, you know, who bought it and that they authorized it and on what date it was. Basically, if the purchasing party doesn't do that and there's an issue down the road, it leaves them subject to having potential issues with that. Because there are at times questions on purchases. And since I didn't get anything ready, take this opportunity to get the pulse of other board members and what their opinions were. You're muted, Scott.
Sorry. I recalled in our purchasing policy, and I'm just looking at it now, we did build into the new policy the purchasing agents and purchasing agent authority. And I don't know if what you're, you know, we set some pretty big windows actually that would probably be bigger than a lot of private organizations, but we've got categories of incidental purchases that are up to $1,000. Those
Right.
designees authorized to act as purchasing agent may make purchases up to $1,000 without prior approval, provided those purchases are limited to the amount of the budget item authorized by the town.
I mean, this wouldn't prevent those purchases from happening without having approval. It's more so that when Ellen's paying things, she knows who bought it and where it came from. And particularly, you know, you run to Welch's to pick something up and a receipt just shows up, or you purchase something with a credit card. No one really knows who it was that made that purchase. It's not precluding that person from being able to make, you know, those purchases that are under $1,000 that are needed without permission. It just leaves a better trail as to who did it, and you know that it was a duly authorized purchase of the town of Pomfret.
So is it more of a paper trail issue than it is a policy issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, you know, you would have to already be a person that's authorized to make a purchase, and you still would have to follow the purchasing policy, you know, of the $1,000, or you know, if it's more than that, obviously, you know, the proper level of permission based on the amount, but just so that there is a accounting of the purchase itself and who was doing it, I guess, would be the specifics.
I think the paper trail and the paper trail and a copy of the invoice and or the credit card receipt, I think that's really important, that those people that are purchasing get that documentation to Ellen. And she's the one that's paying the bills. And if that documentation isn't given to her, she has no idea, especially on credit card purchases, what that money is going to. And I think that we need to tighten that ship up a little bit.
Yeah.
I just think that those kinds of invoices and things for a private business, and you run your own business, that's one thing. But for a public entity or a public business or any kind of business that you're working for someone, it certainly needs to be, if you don't bring an invoice in, you know, we're not going to pay the bill. And
Yeah.
I think that needs to be tightened up, whether you want to do that at this meeting or whether you want to research it a little more. But I think we've been a little lax in that regard.
What I would suggest, actually, this is less, I think, a purchasing policy issue. It's more, and it's not even really an expense reimbursement. It's basically, it's an expense submission paperwork. So that what you'll find, you might even have one at your company, John, but typically what you have is a policy that says, this is what you have to do anytime you purchase something, whether you're getting reimbursed or not. This is how you need to submit the expense to whoever's paying for it. And so I think that would be, it's a pretty short policy. It could be a one pager even. But it just lays out, and it's not just, it really should cover any expenses that are incurred, whether somebody's paying cash or credit card or whatever. If they're incurring an expense on behalf of the town, there should be that paperwork trail as you're talking about.
Yeah, we use two separate small forms. One's a reimbursement form. So if you end up, you're out in the field and something breaks and there's a hardware store a mile down the road, and you can, purchase something for $5 with your own money to get you through the day. You fill out the form, attach the receipt, you get reimbursed. And the other one is for those people that are duly authorized to use a company credit card or a company charge account somewhere. It's a small, like 2x2 piece of paper that, has the division and, who purchased it, that gets attached to the receipt. You staple it to it and then you submit it, and, that's all it is. So.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Nancy, you had your hand up. You're
Mute
muted,
myself.
I think.
Yes, I just unmuted. Well, the Financial Advisory Committee, I'm hoping that we can start meeting after the town meeting is done. And part of that, we've worked on all the policies. They just aren't finished yet. But there is one that really deals with credit cards alone, which is highly recommended by VLTC for the town to adopt such a thing. So if the board is interested, and Emily, you're part of that committee, and I don't know whether Ellen is here tonight, but I think that we could get something to you on that if you're interested fairly soon.
I think it's great to have credit cards included, but I would like to see, I don't know what you're proposing on that, but I would like to see this kind of an approval process for any purchases that aren't those that are, a specific authorized purchase by the board. The bigger purchases that, somebody brings in, 3 estimates or the bid process, I don't think you need that for this, but anybody running down to the store and putting something on a charge account or a credit card or picking up a truck part or something like that, I would like to see that grouped in with this. And you might have something extra for credit cards, but I wouldn't want to have it only for credit cards.
Well, right now, the only people that have a credit card are Jimmy and the town office. I don't believe anyone else has a town credit card. And I think Jimmy uses his to go buy, if he needs a part for something, he sends somebody to go get it.
Right.
I don't imagine those get up to the $1,000 purchasing policy limit. And I think that as a general rule, he's come to us with requests that are over that amount and yet under where a bid is needed. But maybe Nancy and Ellen and I could take a look at that one policy and see if we can't pull something together for at least for the next meeting that you can take a look at. Could we do that?
Sure.
Probably, Nancy, maybe? Or maybe for the meeting after, not the meeting right after town meeting, but the following meeting?
The following meeting, I think, is more reasonable.
I think so too. We'll try and come up with something.
We'll have enough.
And then you can take a look at it.
And then you could
We'll
see
have-
whether that is adequate, or if something could be, if there's something missing in the purchasing policy. I was very involved with that. That can always be edited as well. So it all fits together logically.
The date of that meeting is March 17th,
Thank you.
and we will have sprung ahead with the clock on the 14th. So that's a 7 p.m. meeting.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, consideration of revised conflict of interest policy.
You want me to walk everybody through the
Think
changes?
that would be wise.
Okay.
Just
So
hang on a second, let me find it. I just want to find your,
I can share my screen, John, if
that's
you.
fine too. Go for it.
Hope I share the right thing. I've got a ton of stuff up here. So can you all, I'm sharing, you should see it right now. Can everybody see what I'm sharing?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
I can.
Okay, great. All right, so this is a red line version. There's not a lot of changes. The synopsis of the changes are that we discussed changes at our last meeting. When I got in here, I also found some other changes that I think we kind of overdid it on some of our edits in the last version. So there's a little bit of cleanup here. The first one is in Article 9. It actually, the Article 9, hang on a second, I get my brain on here. Okay, so in Article 9, we overdid it this is one area where we overdid it in the other employees, public officers, or agents language. The consideration of recusal, this provision is really meant to afford, and I'll just highlight the language, the other public officers of the public body. It's to afford them the opportunity to ask questions or make comments. So in other words, in this consideration of recusal, it's really not all these other people that would have the opportunity to speak and ask questions. It's really just the members of the body. And that's not just the select board. Bear in mind that our other town bodies like the Planning Commission, the ZBA, and any other official public bodies of the town. So that's why it doesn't just say select board. But this provision, I believe, needs to be revised to eliminate that other employees, public officers, or agents language, and just clarify that it's other public officers of the public body that shall be afforded the opportunity to ask questions or make comments about the situation. So that's one bit of cleanup that I believe needs to occur. The other one is similar down in Article 10, where we, again, I think in our last amendment, overdid it on the employee and agent. So it's really, this provision applies to only to appointed officials. It doesn't apply to those other classes of people, because obviously this is a removal from office to grounds for discipline or removal from office provision. And that of course doesn't apply to agents of the town or employees. It only applies to appointed officials. So that was another bit of cleanup. The footnotes that have been added here are straight from verbatim, straight from the most current version of VLCT's model conflict of interest policy. I think these are really good clarifying footnotes. So I added those into the policy as well. And then going down in Article 12 is the provision we talked about at our last board meeting, that this language you see here, though such member may still participate as a member of the public. That was some language that was in our original policy that got left out. And so now it's getting added back in. And then finally, in Article 13, this is this consequences for failure to follow the conflict of interest policy. This is language that's straight from the VLCT model policy that we didn't include, that we should include. And then what I changed here, which the board may want to discuss tonight, the previous language was must take progressive action. And basically I copied and pasted the language from the VLCT model policy. May in its discretion take any of the following disciplinary actions against such elected official as it deems appropriate. The reason for the may rather than must is that it should be up to the board. The board doesn't have to take action. It may take action. And I don't know that there's actually anything that compels the board to take action. But again, this is probably, out of all the changes, the more substantive change, and the board may want to talk about it. But I don't recall how robust our discussion was when we adopted the change, but I'm not sure the board ever wants to be put in the position that it must take progressive action. So those are the changes, and I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Should we have must now, we've changed it to may. Should we change may from should? So it's slightly more compelling, but not a requirement. I don't know. Leaving it as may is like, yeah, you can do whatever you want.
Well, may is a term of art in drafting. It's like trying to think of the counterpart, but may has specific when you're drafting policies and such. May is really the more proper phrase rather than should. You could say should, but it has the same effect as may, really, if you put should. So it's more of a word choice, but the most common word choice is may.
I have a question on Article 9.
Mm-hmm.
Go up to Article 9. It's where you have lined out. Well, first of all, okay. So other employees, public officers, or agents. So suppose in a select board meeting, Jimmy Potter, for instance, has a strong belief that there's a conflict of interest. So he's not a member of the public body. Shouldn't he be afforded an opportunity to ask questions?
So what this you have to read the rest of the paragraph for the whole purpose of this provision. So just to read the rest of it, if a previously unknown conflict is discovered during a meeting or hearing conducted by a public body of the municipality, the public body shall take evidence pertaining to the conflict, and if appropriate, adjourn to executive session. So you're right, Chuck, but your question, it's the public body. We could, I guess, the addition of other employees, public officers, or agents is not really relevant to this provision, because this is what the public body is going to do in this consideration of recusal. So I guess what my answer to you, Chuck, would be the chair could allow members of the public, I suppose, there'd be nothing prohibiting it in this provision.
Right, and that's what the last sentence seems to suggest.
Yeah, but
So-
what's important here is the activities of the public body, what the public body is going to do. And
Yeah,
that's why, and what this is meant to do is that the public body is going to do some deliberations.
Correct. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But my question is still valid, I think, so some other employee could have an objection.
Right, but this provision doesn't prohibit that. So in other words, Chuck, by striking out other employees, public officers or agents, that's not going to prohibit the very thing that you would want to occur. The purpose of this provision is for the public body to have a discussion and to do the things that are within this provision. Anybody else who wants to speak on it, that's a question for the board chair or whoever is facilitating the discussion. But again, the strikeout here doesn't prohibit what you would like to see occur.
Okay, Article 10B. Is there a difference between an appointed and elected public officer? There
Yes.
is, right? Yes,
There
there
is.
is.
Yes, there is.
So shouldn't it say elected public officer, or does public officer
No,
mean?
No, this can only apply to appointed. It can't apply to elected. This is the same discussion we had back in the fall when we adopted the change. It can only apply to appointed officials.
You can't, never mind. Just to go back to 9, and I think the point you were trying to make, Scott, and what it says is what happens after there's been an assertion of a conflict of interest, not who can say there is a conflict of
Right.
interest.
Anybody can assert it. Yep. Including members of the public. Yeah, what this, so just to kind of play this out in practical terms, somebody either discloses or someone else asserts that there's a conflict. What the board would do is the board would ask questions and make comments, and it's basically a deliberative activity of the public body. And so that's what this whole provision is about, is what that public body would do once there's been a disclosure or an assertion. And you have to read the whole, to make sense of it, you have to read the whole provision.
Yeah, well, I did read the whole provision.
Okay.
Okay. I don't want to belabor it.
Yeah, I think this is where we kind of went overkill. This is an example where we went overkill in the other employees, public officers or agents.
But what would be the negative to that? I mean, overkill is not always a bad thing, right?
Well, in this case, it is because this provision applies to what the public body is going to do.
Okay.
Any other questions?
13A1.
Mhm.
I understand what you're trying to say there, but those two sentences are somewhat redundant.
Which ones, Emily?
13A1
Oh,
Then a quorum of the public select board may meet informally with the elected public officer. And then it says, this shall not take place in situations where the chair and the elected public officer together constitute a quorum of the public body. So we really have said that twice.
okay. I didn't propose. So
Well,
I'm,
I don't know who proposed it. I'm not
yeah,
complaining.
this
about who
was
proposed
in
it.
our, this
But
was in our last.
it's a little bit redundant. We could either say the second or the first, but really the second one really is, if you're not going to have a quorum there, the second one really doesn't need to be, the second sentence, I wouldn't think would need to be there. But that's just
Probably
me reading it.
need to be there, but I think it's
I-
clarifying that should. Hold on a second.
No, I think it does need to stay there. Let me.
Although I don't know how you could have the chair and one other public.
If you had 3 people, that could be a quorum, but you don't, so it's irrelevant.
The quorum of the public body is going to be, in our instance, 3 members.
Right, and so,
And so then saying this shall not take place in situations where the chair and the elected public officer constitute a quorum, well, that's never going to happen.
right, this
Because
is,
3 are a quorum.
that's right. You're right, Emily.
We really don't need that second sentence in there unless we start changing unless we start changing the nature of the select board, the
Yep.
number of board members.
Right, you're right. You're right. This would apply to a 3-member board, so you're correct. So we could strike this last sentence. You're correct, Emily. Good catch.
On
It's not a fatal, this sentence is not fatal, but it,
well, I realize that, but I mean, there's no sense in having stuff in there if we don't need it. It just makes it confusing.
understood.
I'm not sure why in 1 and 2 of B of Article 13, I'm not sure why you need both of those in there. Isn't any employee, appointed public officer, or agent, they've either been hired or appointed by the select board, then why do we have those that have not been hired or appointed?
Hang on, let me catch up with you, Emily. Are you referring to both 1 and 2 or just one of them?
Well, 1 says those officers who have been hired. And then the next one says those who have not been hired or appointed. And
Right.
I guess I'm a little confused as to why number 2 is there.
Yeah, let me absorb it. I did not entertain these changes. These were in our latest draft. Select board may remove an offending employee or agent has been hired or appointed. Okay.
Well, we have employees that have been hired that haven't been hired by the select board, so that would be where that would come from, correct?
May not order.
Or do we not?
Well, I'm
Oh,
not,
I see. Yeah, you're right, John. This is a separation of powers issue. Yep. Yep. So this
so
is,
what you're saying there then, if like, for instance, if the planning commission hires them?
yep, yeah, this is a
Okay,
separation.
then
of powers.
that makes sense. I could not. So does anyone else have any other problems with this? And if so, or if not, then do you wish to adopt this with the changes Scott made and the one deletion that we had, or do you want to see it in its final form before you do that?
How about I just move that, just to see if we got support for this? How about I'd like to move that we adopt the changes in the agenda packet with the addition of striking, let me get there, of striking the, shoot. That's it. Striking the second sentence in Article 13A1.
Right.
I'll second that.
Yep.
Is there any other comment? Can you stop sharing the document so that I can see if anybody else wants to speak? Thank you, Scott. I don't know whether anybody's here, but I guess most of them are. Is there any more discussion on that motion, which has been made and seconded? If not, are you ready to take a vote on that? Hearing no objections. John?
Aye.
Chuck?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Maybe you'd rework that in your document, and then if you got that up to Becky
For
on
Friday.
Friday, y'all could sign that as well, and then we'd replace the one that we finally signed last week.
Okay, will do.
We could get it done quicker than we did the last one. That'd
Right.
be nice. Okay, continuing employee handbook. Are you expecting Teresa to come tonight, Scott? You're
You're
muted.
muted, Scott.
What was that, Emily?
You're still muted. Were you expecting Teresa to be coming tonight?
No, not tonight. So we, I don't want to go as far to say that we're ready to approve the employee handbook. I think maybe everybody want to give it one more look, but I think we're really, really close. There were a couple outstanding questions that Teresa had that I got answers to after our last meeting. There was some language that we weren't sure about. Some of it looked like it was left over. This has been a good cleanup effort. There was, as well, in addition to the substance, there was some language in our old policy that actually referred to bargaining agreements, and Teresa caught it. And we verified it with VLCT that it is related to bargaining agreements, and there's no need for it in ours. So at any rate, I think we're really, really close. But I guess what I would recommend to everybody is, given that this is a really big, this is a big deal, getting this employee handbook done. And I'm going to assume, unless anybody says differently, that you'll want to take a little bit more time with it to review it. Make sure you don't have any questions. But again, I think we're close.
Seemed like there were quite a few things there that she didn't have want decisions on when she was there the other night, that we made some decisions, but regarding part-time employees and how you were going to treat these things.
Right. Yeah.
We haven't made any decisions on.
Right. We're not that. Yeah, exactly. We're not there yet, but we're close.
I do want to mention that Jimmy emailed me on Monday, and he knew it was going to snow, and he emailed me, which of course I didn't find until the middle of the day, and he'd already come in. He said, "Can I take Monday as a floating holiday? I really need to get the truck ready to plow, and I just as soon take a day off some other day for the holiday." And basically what he was asking was could he take his holiday pay at some other day and just work regular hours on Monday? And by the time I found the email, he was already there and halfway done probably. And I said, yes, I don't know what our policy is regarding floating holidays, but he did mention that he was going to talk to Teresa about floating holidays and that it would be beneficial to the town money-wise because they could take these holidays, there would be like Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving and maybe the 4th of July that would be definite holidays, but then they could take those other holidays whenever they wanted to, except probably not in the winter. And so you wouldn't be in an instance where if they came in like yesterday on President's Day or Monday on President's Day, like he did, and they came in, you'd pay them regular pay if they wanted to take that President's Day holiday in July, for instance. So it might be something you want to think about. In this particular instance, he really had to get the truck ready. And so that's what he did. And I clarified that with him on Tuesday morning. And he said, yes, he would take the holiday some other day. And we would just pay him for regular time on Monday. And I said, that's fine. But I just thought you ought to know that. And we ought to think about that because that isn't what our policy reads now.
Okay.
I think that's, especially if it's a day that they have to, like Monday, day that they had to come in and plow snow. So regardless of the holiday, they had to be here. It benefits us and it benefits them, but it also gets them some time off on another day that they might not take it off. And I don't see it would necessarily have to be taken in the summer. If they've got to come in and work on the holiday, well, maybe Friday ends up being a nice day and they don't have to do anything to the roads and they use that holiday then. I don't see why we
absolutely. I didn't mean to imply that they had to take it on a summer day, but they are weather dependent. But anyway,
Yes.
It's something we ought to think about as well, because that isn't how it reads now. Anything more on the employee handbook, Scott?
No.
Defining town service officer responsibilities?
So in anticipation of assuming Sheila will want to be reappointed as the town service officer, in my conversations with her in the past, she's always been happy to serve. But what we don't have and what she has asked for in the past is she'd like to know what we want her to do. And basically what has changed in statute is that there's no longer a statutory definition of the role or the job duties. And what you'll see, VLCT actually has some model language. It's pretty basic. I can share my screen, and I circulated some links around a while ago. Or I can just read it. Maybe it's easier just for me to read it out loud since it's so short. This is just, you can go to a lot of different town websites in Vermont and the language is very close to what I'm about to read. Town service officer. The town service officer is charged with assisting individuals with the town who require emergency food, fuel, or shelter assistance. This official is called upon only when the Vermont Department of Social Welfare is closed on the weekends and after office hours. At these times, the service officer helps individuals in need to obtain the necessary goods and services until the Department of Social Welfare is open. And then it cites 33 VSC 2102. In some communities, the town service officer acts as an advocate for the poor, informing them of social programs that may be available to them and helping them navigate the confusing social welfare system. So that's a very brief job description, but if we adopted something like that, which again is a pretty common description of the responsibilities, that would give Sheila some guidance about what it is she's supposed to do. So I really put this on the agenda tonight more as a predecessor to the organizational meeting that will come up after town meeting. And so that when the board makes its appointments, it could adopt when it reappoints Sheila, if it reappoints Sheila, to include something like what I just read in her appointment. That's it.
Any discussion?
I can send that around if you all want to, have it at the ready later, just that language.
I just wonder if there are all these social service agencies. There's the senior center, there's the Ottaquechee Health Foundation, and there's these various social service agencies that seem to work pretty well together. I'm not sure why, and maybe we do, I don't know. I just question whether the town service officer language came into existence when they no longer decided the position should be the overseer of the poor. And I'm just, and now it appears that between the state and all these local social service agencies, those needs have been pretty much met. And I'm not sure why we even need that at this point. And that's just off the cuff thinking, but I don't know whether, obviously, she hasn't been needed much in the past, at least of late.
That's what I was going to ask. Has she ever been called upon? And it sounds like she wasn't even sure what it was that she was supposed to do. And I never knew either exactly what the town service officer's duties were. Does anybody know? Has she been called upon?
I don't know. We could ask her. How about, can I make a recommendation?
Sure.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't want to necessarily predispose a decision one way or the other, but maybe the thing to do is to invite her to the organizational meeting and get some input from her and see how she feels about it. Maybe if it might be worth seeing if there is something worthwhile doing. And again, the job description I read has a very specific, the main function is very specific to basically make up for when the Vermont Department of Social Welfare is closed. So there's a very specific role, but maybe it makes sense just to spend a little bit of time at the organizational meeting and talk to her, ask her a couple questions, see if she's interested, see if there's anything valuable she could do. And if the answer is no, then, board doesn't need to do anything.
The reason I question it, when we started, when COVID-19 became a concern, Kevin is the emergency management officer coordinator, and he put together a meeting, and I can't remember who else on the board was there. I know I was there.
I was there, yeah.
Were you there, Chuck?
Yeah.
And he had the visiting nurses in, and Mr. Green from Emergency Services in Woodstock. Dr. Herman was there as the health officer. And after that, Kevin kind of took the lead on if people needed food, and he would, or needed groceries, he would arrange for someone to get their groceries and those kinds of things. And there was a budget for that. And I'm just thinking that, and I'm more than willing to reach out to the senior center perhaps, and some of these other social service agencies that we already are linked with. And it seems to me that this office at this point may be just redundant. And before I would ask for Sheila to come in and talk about it, I think as a board, we ought to figure out whether it's a redundant situation, even in the situation that you describe. And I just think we need to know a little more about what these other social service agencies are already doing for these kinds of needs. And before we get too far down the road, because it may just be a function that we don't need anymore, that's already being well taken care of by all these other agencies that we already fund, and that we might as well, our townspeople might as well get some uses out of. That's just my feeling a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing. In fact, I agree with everything you just said. I guess the only thing I would add to it is, why not include her in that discussion?
Well, I think the board maybe ought to make a decision, but that's that's not up for me to say. That's a board decision.
Mhm. Okay, all right.
I I need some guidance as to what the board wants to do about this. Or we can just let it sit and deal with it and discuss it again at the next regular meeting. But I need some guidance.
I guess I would recommend, I don't want to make a rash decision tonight. I would recommend that, just make it part of the organizational meeting. We don't need to devote a ton of time to it, but just have a quick conversation. And I can, if you want, I can try and facilitate getting some information and just piecing together the picture. I don't know. That would help.
That would be fine. Let's do that.
Yeah, that would be fine. Yeah, let's do that.
That okay with everybody? I don't think we need a motion.
Sounds good.
John, are you okay with that? John must be muted. John?
Yes, that's good.
Okay. Reappointment list of town officials.
I'm just looking, I didn't notice this in the agenda packet before, but it's not easy to read.
No, it printed badly.
Yeah, so if bear with me for just a moment. So because I need to find what I sent Cynthia. Heck was it? Here it is. I got it. I can just read it off rather than sharing my screen. So I think I'm just, some of these I'm sure of, some of these I'm not sure of. I think, and this is one I'm not sure of, do we need to appoint a citizen trustee of the La Bounty Fund anymore? I can't remember.
That's a one-year term that Karen has.
Well, right now it's vacant.
I don't believe so. I think Karen's there.
Oh, okay. Then we didn't, it's reported in the town report as vacant.
Maybe Karen has moved her residency, and so she no longer can qualify for that.
I think that might be
That is
right.
possible.
I think that's right, Emily, since she moved, and it probably has to be a resident. So
But
that's
that was
one.
a one-year appointment, as I recall.
Yeah, so that's one we have to do. We need to do the E911 coordinator. And then we have right now 3 representatives for the EC Fiber board. We have Alan Graham as the primary. Kristen Etsy is the first alternate and Betsy Rhodes is the second alternate. So those are 3 reappointments. And basically I can send this around to everybody, but what I did was I just took the list that Ben put together for the town report and I just highlighted the ones that we'll need to appoint. The next ones are the Greater Upper Valley Solid Waste Management District. And then Neil Lampson. I can't remember. I feel like we decided on the ZBA and Planning Commission appointments, but I can't remember what we decided, whether we would do them in conjunction with the organizational meeting or do them in the, I think, summer timeframe, which is.
No, we were going to do them all before the 1st of April.
Okay.
We're going to do them at the organizational meeting. We were going to do them at the next meeting. And that would give the new board, whatever that might entail, a chance to determine what was necessary. And that would give us between the first and second meeting, determine whether or if we wanted those people to serve again, that terms expired, and a chance to discuss that with them. For instance, like the Planning Commission, there will be at least one vacancy there, I assume, because of Orson's death, but usually the Planning Commission recommends someone for their board,
Right.
or however many, and that gives us time to get that done.
Right. Yep. So now Nelson is up, and then you're right, Emily, there's actually 2 vacancies there. And then one thing the board will want to consider, which I've done in the past, but we lost our pound keeper. I did reach out to Lucy Mack. I didn't get a response from them yet, but Lucy Mack might be the best option as far as having a pound keeper, but that's one appointment. There's nothing urgent about that, but if it's going to get done at the same time. Town agent, and I can't recall if we're even required to appoint a town agent.
We don't need a town agent anymore. That's why it's not on the
warning.
That was an elected position, and that's why it's not there anymore.
Okay, so that we can cross off. And then we already talked about the town service officer. Heidi Gennaro is coming up on the energy committee. We've got the 2 other committees, the capital planning committee and the financial management committee. Although right now, none of the members have terms. And then of course, Cy and Alan Graham as tree warden and deputy tree warden. Bill Emmons and Phil Deckert for 2 Rivers. Karen is coming up on her term as zoning administrator. And then Alan Blackmer will be coming up on his term for the ZBA. So there's a slew of appointments coming up. And again, I can circulate the list that I highlighted.
Okay. Moving on, we did the greater bid evaluation.
Yep.
Oh, I guess we're
We
done.
did.
This is great. Is there anything else that we have forgotten anywhere? Or that I was tasked with speaking with Haydock at Bogburn Hall. Karen was going to get me some contact information, which she forgot to do, and I will reach out to her again, and I will get that done before the next meeting. As I recall, there was something, you were going to write a letter or something, Scott, at the end of the last meeting, or perhaps a listserv post regarding, where does it say this?
This was on the plowing. This was on things in the right of way, right?
Yes, vehicles in the road and.
And
Yeah.
so did you do that?
I did not. Do you still want that done?
Well, I think a short listserv post wouldn't hurt, I know, I thought Cindy put something in the Pomfret News, but I don't know how many people read that. I don't ever read it, so I don't know, but it seems to me a listserv post to indicate that the roads, the cars shouldn't be left in the road would be a wonderful thing. If you could do that, there's another storm coming on Friday. If you could do that the next day or two, that would be really good.
Okay.
There was another part to that too. Wasn't there something in regards to also maybe dogs with them or something? Having to be under control, reminding of our ordinance or something?
Yes. I do believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right.
Okay, select board correspondence. I have none other than Karen wrote you all an email that she got the taxes for the Donovan property. And she has gotten that bank transfer, so that will be off her list of tax sale properties.
Definitely best possible outcome for all parties, so.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Review of assignments.
Now to make the bank account look good.
Mhm.
That was a big one.
So you're going
Yeah, that
to
was.
check in with those social service agencies, Scott?
Yep.
And
Steve, to do a greater spreadsheet.
you're going to do the plow letter, Cindy, with Jimmy?
Yes, and
And Nancy and I and Ellen are going to look into the credit card stuff, not for the next meeting, but for the following one. And
you're going to talk to this furnace vendors.
and I will talk to the furnace vendors.
Okay.
Regarding water softener. And agenda items for the next meeting, we have to readopt the rules and procedures for the select board meetings, and it will be an organizational meetings. And then we will discuss appointments, and I don't have anything else right now. Does anyone else?
Nope.
Then I would look to some kind of motion.
So moved to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, John,
Aye.
Chuck,
Aye.
Steve,
Hi.
Scott,
Aye.
myself.